Kia ora. This is John Winters, Supermarket Sleuth, talking to you from New Zealand. And kia ora is the Maori greeting hello. Now, this week I'm starting off by admitting that I have taken a little bit of time out from behind this desk, and I shot up to the UK because I was intrigued by Jack's. Jack's, the new discount supermarket that's been created by Tesco and has obviously thrown into the market to try and offset the impact from discounters Lidl and Aldi. Now, it's a new environment for Tesco. Yes, they've had private label in their store for a long time, but discounting stores are very different from traditional supermarkets, as we know. And what they have done is they have developed a format which is exactly the same format as Aldi and Lidl. And by that I mean that, yes, they have all the traditional supermarket food, many less choices in the categories, which is what the Lidl and Aldi do. And also they've got the one-offs down the centre of the store. Now, they used to be, when I was in the UK, it was just at the back of the store, but since then they have increased the number of one-offs and it's right down the middle. So Tesco through Jack's has done the same. Now let's start off at the beginning, a little bit of background. Where's the word Jack's come from? Well, Jack Cohen was the founder of Tesco. And they've even gone along the road that he chose when he decided, when he opened the first Tesco, what was he going to call it? How did he come up with the word Tesco? Well, his wife's name was Tess, and the first two letters of their name, CO of Cohen. So, Tesco. That's how it came about. Now, how have they come about Jack? Well, quite obvious, isn't it? Because Jack Cohen. So they've used their founder's name for the range of the chain of new stores. And actually, when I went to the first store that opened was in Chatteris on the Fens in Cambridgeshire. And I was bowled over, I have to say, when I saw the store, because I had, in my mind, I'd worked out that it was an old original Tesco store that they'd taken over and stripped out and put something new in, new look, new format, but I was very wrong. It's on the outskirts of Chatteris, which again surprised me. There's a few houses opposite, but it is very much alone. There are no other retailers nearby. It's in a new building and it shares the building with Pound Stretcher. And they're next to each other. Now, Pound Stretcher focuses more on non-food items. It does have confectionery and things like that and snacks, but it's not a supermarket like Jack's is. So that was a surprise to me. A huge car park, but almost empty when I got there. So I walk in, and the first thing that greets me when I walk into the store is a huge picture, really big picture, much bigger than my 192 centimetres or 6'2" height, very big and quite wide, and that greets you as you go in. So as you walk into through the turnstile to go in, it's on your right hand side and you can't miss it. And that was a surprise, but when I looked at the store, one thing that I noticed, which actually is not unusual in British supermarkets, is the width of the aisles. Now in New Zealand, our aisles are nowhere near as wide as the aisles in the UK. The aisles in New Zealand, two trolleys can pass with one another, but if there's someone there restocking with those special trolleys they use, it can create quite a traffic jam. Whereas in the UK, I noticed, and I went into all the supermarkets, you would expect it, a sort of busman's holiday, I suppose. I did other things as well, but I was intrigued to see Jack's and what was happening with the other supermarkets. Now, wide aisles, a large store, not a huge choice in the different categories, which mirrors Aldi and Lidl, and also, as I say, the one-offs down the middle. Now, they call those wigging. Now, wigging? What's wigging? Well, wigging, that's clever. When it's gone, it's gone. And that's what they call it. And I thought that was quite funny. I saw it on their leaflet that they had at the flyer they had at the entrance to the store. And as with Aldi and Lidl, once the things in the middle of the store are gone, they're gone. You can't order them. And if you really like what you see on the flyer and you want it, you better go in early, because the good things are hot and they'll go. Lots of other things that are not so much in demand, but certainly the good sellers, the mobile phones and the things like that, they go fast. Now, what did I think? Well, it wasn't very busy, I have to admit. I know it's early days, but they have been open quite a while. Maybe this was a weekday. When did I go? On a Tuesday. So early in the week. Probably had I gone at the weekend, it may have been a different story. So I don't think it's fair to judge how successful the store is simply by what I saw when I went in, because maybe people pop there on the way home, as I say, weekends, Friday nights, so it could be pretty busy then, and there's plenty of space in the car park, so it's not fair to judge it on that. But certainly I was impressed with the cleanliness, the space, the light, everything about it was very user-friendly and made you feel very comfortable when you went in the store. So time will tell, but when they opened Jack's, the two Tesco's said that they were going to open 15. Well, that was last September. So far, they haven't got to 15. They've just opened another one in Merseyside at Walton, Liverpool. And they've got two others there, one in Edge Hill and one at St Helens. The store at Walton is actually in a former Tesco store, so it's not a brand new store like at Chatteris. Following a recent opening, there are now 9 Jack stores around the UK. So that's down from the 15 that they promised. Recent reports suggest that maybe the idea is slow to pick up. Perhaps it could be the location. It could be a lot of factors involved, and it's something new. And Aldi and Lidl do it well. Can Tesco do it as well as Aldi and Lidl? Well, only time will tell there, and Tesco will just have to suck it and see for a while. And the reports say they're having limited success. But Tesco have said there's been a strong response to the new chain. So, again, a bit of a difference of opinion there. Let's wait and see. And the latest Jack's outlet in Roanstall in Lancashire, that's become more of a cash and carry. And the smaller grocery stores, the independents, do see the big supermarkets and the discounters as a way of getting product in at a low price and making their margin without having to go to the cash and carry places that tend to be a little more expensive. So the long-term plans for Jack's, well, Tesco's keeping mum over that. They're not going to reveal their thoughts, and I can't really blame them for that, because it's early days, and with all new businesses, when they start, it takes time for it to get established. So obviously they've got to push a lot of promotion into it, because that's the only way it's going to work. So as I say, time will tell. But anyway, growth in the UK grocery sector continues to slow, as industry sales increased by just 0.4% in June, costing UK supermarkets over £120 million in lost sales. The slowdown in growth was likely due to the monsoon weather experienced by the UK during that time. The cold and wet conditions caused shoppers to hold back spend and buy fewer items than over the previous 12 weeks. Sales at the big 4 supermarkets were flat, or in slight decline, with the strongest sales at the cooperative once again, with an increase of 1.9%. Iceland. Now, Iceland has been around a long time. They started off as a frozen food store only, and they gradually, over the course of time, added groceries, and they are actually doing quite well as an independent store away from the big four. And they saw growth of 2.2%. But now let's have a look at the discounters. Aldi, up 9.4%. Lidl, up 15.2%. I mean, those are big growths in business. Tesco continues to dominate in as far as market share goes in the UK with 26.5%. But the rising combined market share of Aldi at 9.5% and Lidl at 6.4% puts them in second place. So forget about the brands, just say discounters, and talking about German discounters if you like, and they're in number 2 position. They've pushed Sainsbury's down to number 3 at 14.3% market share, and Asda at 4th place at 13.6%. So you can see why Sainsbury's and Asda wanted to merger, because with a combined market share, that would push them way over the top of Tesco, but that wasn't allowed. So they're going to have to find another way of developing their businesses, and they've got 3 competitors. They've got Tesco, they've got the discounters, and they've got online. And so competition is fierce in the UK, which is good for consumers. Now let's look at it from the consumer point of view, and you couldn't have had it better than this, because they're all struggling to get your money out of your wallet, and so the only way they're going to win is to tempt you into the store, and that's through prices. And the discounters are the people at the bottom of the pile in terms of price, and all these supermarkets have got, of course, their private label and specials, but they have to fight back if they're going to survive. Now over to the US. According to Nielsen, which is the company that takes all the data from the checkouts and analyzes it, there's a private label outbreak, and there's no slowing it down, both in stores and online. Now that's interesting. So there's a development, a growth in private label. People obviously have been sampling private label or own brand, as you say in the UK, and they found that they quite like it. They like the price, but it's not just price. It's got to be quality, and it's got to be taste and everything else. Now, Aldi is very hot on quality. I can't speak for Lidl, but certainly for Aldi, they're very, very hot. And when they appoint someone as a manufacturer for their product, obviously they choose a name, and the conditions they demand are very stringent. And Aldi is an operator who will drop in on a manufacturer at any moment. They don't warn them. That would be stupid to do that, because then the manufacturer would be perfect. Everything would be perfect. No, they drop in and say, oh, hi, come just to have a look around, just check how things are going. And so that keeps the manufacturers on their toes. They can't afford to slacken, because otherwise they'll lose the contract. And it's quite a lucrative contract. A lot of these contracts are not done by new players in the market, and there are 1 or 2 new players who are focusing on private label, but a lot of them are established brands who see doing work for Aldi as an addition to the use of the equipment and the use of the staff, the overheads. It helps with the overheads. So the same staff are doing these products for Aldi and Lidl as are doing their own brands, and so it works very well for them. And the quality clearly is there, and they're food manufacturers, so that is why they go to people like that. But let's have a look at private label. From aluminium foil to disposable, they call them diapers, we call them nappies, private label options are generating a significant portion of the overall e-commerce sales within certain categories. Many are quick to associate private label with brick and mortar stores, which is not surprising. That's how they began, given the fact that store brands account for 17% of consumer packaged goods. So that's own label is at 17% of the store turnover. dollar sales in physical retail stores in the United States. Private label sales have also increased by $7.9 billion across brick and mortar stores in the past 3 years. But there's much more to the private label story than just what you see in physical stores, because from Amazon's new skincare line to Chewy.com's new private label pet food, retailer branded products are no longer a niche online. Private label accounts for 3% of online dollar sales, which may sound small, but online is big. So therefore, it's becoming important. It's up from 1.3% 2 years ago. And some categories, particularly household care and baby products, are caught in the crosshairs. Consumers are willing to be disloyal. And the supermarkets have known that for some time. And you might say, we're not disloyal. What does that mean? It means that you're not necessarily going to do all your shop at Tesco because you've seen a good deal in Sainsbury, or there's something good in Lidl. So you're going after the bargains. And the supermarkets realise that, and they realise that they can no longer rely upon the loyalty of the customer. There are ways of combating that. Obviously, the store card is a good way, because the store card can work very well to the store's advantage. And the more money you spend, the more you gain in the discounts, and the more you gain in these cashbacks that they send you out now online, and that you can use to spend. And that happens 4 times a year, where they get the return on the points that they've earned on the card, the club card at Tesco, or wherever it is, Nectar, I think it's at Sainsbury. And that gives the stores 4 Christmases a year, because when they've got this extra cash, they're in the store spending, because they have to spend it in the store that's given them the money. They can't spend it anywhere else. So it is one way of clawing back some of the loyalty. But at the end of the day, what is more important? Is it points on your store card, or is it cheaper products that have the quality? Not just cheap and nasty products, which is where they started. They started, the private label started with Me Too's, as they were called, where they just copied store brands. Sainsbury's is famous for copying Coca-Cola, and made Coca-Cola so angry it gave it the product the name Cola, which was quite able to do because that's generic, but it used the same colouring on the label, and Coca-Cola were absolutely furious. This was going back to the 80s. So the chief executive of Sainsbury's was sent an order, not an invitation, an order to report to Atlanta, Coca-Cola's headquarters. And so Julie went to Atlanta to see what the problem was. And of course, Coke was seething, and they said, that new cola of yours looks too much like our Coca-Cola. You've got to stop selling it. And so Sainsbury's said, stop selling it? But it's our brand. No, we're not going to stop selling it. We'll carry on. So now, how did that affect Coca-Cola? What were they going to do? Coca-Cola, it's no good Coca-Cola producing all these soft drinks if they can't sell them. And they rely upon the supermarkets and all the other places to have them on shelf. So the choice that Coca-Cola had was go with the flow and just hope that these private label products don't take off, or lose your position, lose your space in the store, because if you decide, we're not going to let you sell our products, you'll be the ones who lose, not the supermarket. They'll find others to go in. There's Pepsi-Cola. So Coca-Cola hasn't got it all to themselves by any means, and there are others that have come along since. So there we are. So the private label brands are certainly having an effect, and it would be interesting, and I'm beginning to wonder, certainly it's having a dramatic increase in online sales, and I'm just wondering whether this is because there's a little bit of reticence amongst some people, probably the better off to be seen buying private label products in store when they've got a Jag parked outside, or a Mercedes or a BMW. But if you buy it online, people don't see what you're buying, and it's delivered in a big box, so people can't see what's inside it. So that could be the attraction to buying private label online and sticking to buying store brands in store, not store brands, to the national brands in store. So just a theory, have to wait and see. Now, according to market research at IRI, sales volumes of cooking sauces and long life prepared foods fell by 6%. And this is because shoppers, we're now talking about shoppers in Australia, are worried about what they're buying and what they're eating. And they're going for better food, going away from processed food. So processed food, the Herald Sun in Australia, which is one of the national papers, reported on supermarket data showing that the sales of canned fruit and vegetables dropped by 5% and 3% respectively in the past year. Now, according to IRI, declining food categories with sales dropping between 2 and 6% in a year have been said to include canned fish, baby food. And I'm not surprised about baby food, because there's been a big concern about baby food and the quality and the safety of it. Long life juice, salad dressings, and canned and packet soups. Products back in favour due to perceptions that they are healthier include full cream milk and butter. And how many people moved away from butter when they perceived that the fat in butter, or it's going to make us fat? We'll go to margarine and low-fat spreads. But now people are returning to full cream milk and to butter, which is interesting. And in the UK, I noticed that they had the problem can be with butter that, of course, it's hard. And it's hard to use if you want to spread it on bread. Now, some people will cut some off the block, and they'll keep it out of the fridge and just long enough to use it up in a day or so without it going rancid or anything like that. But I noticed in the UK there's a soft butter, which is butter, but it's soft. And so that, I think, is the way to go. They don't do it in this country. They do a butter-flavoured spread, which is not the same. So, sales of extra virgin oil, as I said before, increased by 16%, according to IRA. As consumers become more health conscious, spending is increasing in the health food aisle, with sales growing by 8% over the last 12 months. Aldi in the UK is set to trial plastic-free, we're moving back to the UK. Aldi is set to trial plastic-free packaging for its toilet rolls. Bathroom tissue, they call it in the United States. I've never worked out why they call it bathroom tissue. I mean, toilets are toilets. We all use toilets, so why not call it toilet rolls? The discounter is to sell 4 packs of its luxury toilet paper wrapped in paper in 174 stores across parts of the North East and Midlands from next month. If the pilot is a success, the packaging will be rolled out across the UK on all packets of Aldi toilet paper. The retailer estimates such a move could save around 935 tonnes of plastic each year. Aldi could then extend the initiative to cover kitchen towels, which is a natural progression. Now, still in the UK, Sainsbury's has linked up with WH Smith again, this time supplying the chain with a range of branded and own label alcoholic drinks. According to trade magazine The Grocer, around 50 products have been made available at WH Smith stores in London's Victoria railway station. Brands said to be involved include Brewdog, Peroni and Pimm's, as well as Sainsbury's own label wine and Prosecco drinks. Now, this is interesting, because last time I talked about Amazon opening up outlets on station platforms in London, and the first thing they sold was gin. And I'm just beginning to wonder, is this daily toil of going into London by train and coming out again, and all the crowds, as I found when I went in, is it causing people to hit the bottle on the way home? It's very strange to me how stations seem to be a good place to sell alcohol. Anyway, we move on. Yes, Sainsbury's have linked up with WH Smith, and the report highlighted the trial was Sainsbury's latest attempt to follow Tesco and Morrison's into wholesaling as it looks for new avenues of growth after its plan to merge with Asda failed. Sainsbury's recently ended a food-to-go supply trial with 10 WH Smith travel stores. The two retailers said they were reviewing results from the trial before deciding on whether to roll it out. Now for the good news. Overall shop prices in June fell for the first time since October 2018 as high street retailers discounted goods to tempt cautious shoppers to spend, and food inflation remains steady. The index shows prices slipped 0.1% last month, driven down by the non-food retail sector where prices fell 1.2%. So that's good news. Food inflation held steady at 1.8%. Fresh food inflation eased in June to 1.4% from 1.5% in May, with ambient food inflation edged up from 2.1 to 2.3%. So that's looking good. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the UK this month, because I talked to you just now about the monsoon period they had a year ago in June, which really badly affected supermarket sales. Now, what will happen with this huge heat wave that's impacting the UK at the moment? We'll have to wait till next month to see what impact has that. Obviously, cold drinks, water, and all those sort of things go off the shelves. Ice cream and all these sort of things are big hits, but we'll just have to see. Now, back down to Australia. The Woolworths Group plans to spin off its drinks and hospitality operations, which include Endeavour Drinks. Not many people realise that belongs to Woolworths, and the ALH Group, in a move that allows it to focus on its core retail banners. It says it'll combine Endeavour and ALH into a single entity to be called Endeavour Group Limited. The new vehicle will combine the 1,500 plus BWS and Dan Murphy's drinks outlets and 327 ALH pubs and hotels, as well as the Pinnacle Drinks, Cellarmasters and Langton businesses. Woolworths said it expected to retain minority ownership of the business, adding that the move will help the new entity to realise its full potential. Now, I should explain here that the situation with the sale of alcohol in both Australia and New Zealand is different to the UK. In the UK, everything goes. All alcohol is sold through supermarkets. But in Australia, it has to be sold through a separate till because it's it can't go through the main till, so it's a separate section of the supermarket. And for that reason, and many of the supermarkets don't sell alcohol at all, and for that reason, Woolworths went into opening chains of liquor stores. And this is what's happened, and they're now looking to sell those on to focus on, and they have to focus on the main core business, which is the supermarkets, because they've got Aldi there. Aldi's been there 20 years. They've got Costco there. So they really have to get back to grassroots and try and fight this. And also they've got Amazon. So it couldn't be worse for Australia. Now, back to the UK. Asda is introducing a service that will allow customers to have grocery orders delivered within just half an hour. It's linking up with food service delivery service Just Eat to introduce the offer, which is similar to schemes being rolled out by Waitrose, Sainsbury's and the Co-op. Asda's express grocery delivery service will initially be trialled from 2 stores in Leicester and Sutton. That's Sutton in Surrey, Leicester in the Midlands, with customers able to order from a list of around 100 essential items. Asda began working with Just Eat just last year to trial a pizza delivery service that taps into the growing takeaway market. This has proved a huge success and will be rolled out to 50 stores by the end of the year. Now, still in the UK, Associated British Foods, ABF, which is an interesting company. Among the things that they produce sugar, and they also own the Primark stores. So they're also into bakery, and this is what the story is about. today. Its group revenue in the first 40 years of its current financial year has increased 3% on a constant currency basis. They were up 4% when excluding its Ailing sugar unit. Revenues in its grocery division rose 1%, with the expected operating profits margin for the full year to be ahead, with good trading in Twinings, Ovaltine, Acetum, whatever that is, AB World Foods, ACH in the US, and George Weston Foods, which is in Australia and New Zealand. ABF said it's continuing to take action to cut costs at Allied Bakeries. The group is to relocate its bakery operations from Cardiff. This follows it losing the contract to supply Tesco's with own label bread, and obviously that was important to ABF, to its own label business, and it's lost that. So the company's ingredients business generally generated a revenue that was about 5% ahead of last year. Meanwhile, total sales of ABF's Primark clothing chain were up 4%, driven by new stores. However, this was partially offset by a decline in like-for-like sales due to the poor weather in the UK at the start of the summer. Made up for it now, of course. For the full year, ABS said that it expects good profit growth in Primark and on an underlying basis in its grocery business as well. It added that its full-year outlook for the group remains unchanged, with adjusted earnings per share expected to be in line with last year. Shares in ABF rose over 1% on the news, extending their gains to 20% this year. And that wraps it up for this week. I hope you found something of interest there. You can, if you want to talk to me, if you want to email me, you can email me at supermarketsleuth@gmail.com, and you can catch up with me on YouTube and also Spotify and iTunes podcasts. So I look forward to catching up with you again next year. Until then, bye for now.